thank you all for being here. I'm Dave Moore. I'm a volunteer with OTA. It's spelled M-O-O-R-E. We're here to support the mayor and the city council in passing the resolution brought forward by Ward 5 councilperson Michael Nash. This is a great resolution and it needs to pass. It will protect our city and in particular our water supply from the predatory and polluting practices forced on cities around our state by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, the OTA. The resolution will use existing state, municipal, and federal laws and ordinances to protect our water supply and our community from the pollution that accompanies every OTA toll road project. We applaud the mayor and the city council in passing the Nash resolution, a copy of which is in your information packet. Other information in the packet is a list of Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality violations perpetrated by the OTA. Violations that the OTA just ignores because the DEQ says they have no enforcement power. They won't sue the OTA because they're another state agency, and so, since they can't enforce the law, OTA just ignores the law. Well, guess what? The city of Norman does have enforcement powers to protect our citizens and our water supply, and that's what the Nash resolution addresses. It needs to pass. Please welcome our first speaker, Tessie Hirschfeld.
Hi, my name is Tassie Hirschfeld. It's spelled Tassihirschfeld. I'm here today in support of the resolution to protect the environment around Norman and the fragile Lake Thunderbird watershed. I am trying to come up with an appropriate metaphor to explain the moment that I believe we're in. The one I came up with is to invite you to imagine that you are in the later days of the Roman Empire. You wake up one morning and you go outside and you see that there's a group of Visigoths camped outside your town. And so at this point you have two choices. You can alert the town and try to prevent an invasion, or you can form a study committee to try to mitigate the damage that you know will come from the looting and the destruction that should follow. If you feel this metaphor is extreme, I brought some examples of previous turnpike authority abuses that I can share with you that I hope will persuade you that this is in fact an accurate representation of events. Number one, and this is all taken from the Tulsa World stories about the Creek Turnpike construction in the late 1980s and early 1990s. So number one, the Turnpike Authority demanded illegal public subsidies for the construction of access roads and interchanges, which they are not entitled to. On January 5th, 1989, Senator Darrell Roberts of Ardmore protested the OTA's plans to use $117 million of public funds to finance the construction of access roads. The statutes, he said, require the Turnpike Authority to finance access roads, connecting roads, and interchanges. They're ignoring the law. They are making it up as they go along. Point two, the Turnpike Authority with the Creek Turnpike initially refused to include agreed upon aesthetic and flood control features. The original Tulsa plan for this highway called for, quote, a park-like buffer between residential areas and the roadway. When questioned by city leaders, however, OTA Director Richard Ridings acknowledged that there was no money allocated for these features, despite the fact that the highway would pass less than 200 feet from residential areas. He proposed a chain link fence instead. He also revealed that proposed flood control elements were not guaranteed and left it up to the city, or tried to foist these expenses off on the city. Number three, and this one I feel like is most important given the events that are happening now with the East-West Connector. With the Creek Turnpike, OTA took advantage of property owners with lowball offers and prolonged litigation, punitive litigation. On January 8, 1990, the Turnpike Authority condemned approximately 33 parcels of land for the Creek Turnpike. One of them belonged to New Life Pentecostal Church in Tulsa. 4 years later, Pastor Gary Howard complained he still had not received compensation. He told the Tulsa World, these were, quote, the most dishonest people I have ever dealt with in my life. The church eventually won a settlement of over $500,000, but the OTA continued to litigate, demanding attorney's fees even though they lost the case, tied it up in court even longer. And my last point, With the Creek Turnpike construction, OTA ignored calls for environmental oversight and may have, it's uncertain, inappropriately disposed of radioactive pipe uncovered along the Creek Turnpike route. Creek Turnpike was routed over fragile wetlands. This was initially opposed by the EPA, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. All of these federal agencies eventually relented. The details of this have never been made public. We honestly would like to know how this was accomplished. And then, as the construction continued, one contractor stated, quote, a resident stated they're not playing by rules because while these permits were pending, the OTA began construction, including around fragile wetlands. And then later, after the turnpike was finished, a construction contractor alleged he was told to bury radioactive pipe discovered along the turnpike route. And the creek goes along the old Glenpool oil field. There were hundreds of uncapped wells. And interestingly, some of the newspapers reported the OTA acquiring mineral rights along with the properties. But again, those have never been disclosed. So my final takeaway conclusions, and for the city of Norman, for the people of Oklahoma, the Turnpike Authority does not have a history of operating honestly, with transparency or integrity. OTA extracts wealth from homeowners and communities without adequate compensation. OTA does not honor agreements with cities and towns. This is established beyond the Creek Turnpike construction, also the Kickapoo. And OTA does not have a history of respecting environmental regulations. So we are all gathered here today to encourage the city of Norman, to thank the mayor for willing to support our cause as much as he is able, and encourage the city to move beyond the idea of a study to mitigate the damage and to focus more on what other legal avenues might be available to stop this construction altogether. Thank
Mr. Robert Norman, if you'd like to share some thoughts, and then introduce Michael when you're done.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm Rob Norman. I have been serving as a lawyer working against the turnpikes and working for Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation in both litigation and legislative efforts, and now, of course, with efforts in front of the city. Our government, whether it's city, local, federal, state, whatever, is constructed to serve the many and not the few. It's constructed to serve the people and protect their rights, and not to serve the financial interests of a few, or not to be run by bureaucrats. Unfortunately, that is what we're dealing with here with the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, is a group of bureaucrats who are captured by a few special interests, who don't care about people's property rights, who don't care about people's civil rights, and don't care about compliance with the law. Tassie just gave you some detailed research, and what I'd like to focus on is it is now time for a new chapter in the turnpike fight. We've been fighting at the state level. We will continue to fight at the state level. We will continue to fight at the federal level. What we're doing right now is we are asking our city, which is one of the great cities in America and one of the great cities in the state of Oklahoma, where we're intelligent people, we're engaged in politics, we participate, we insist on the rule of law and representative democracy. We are asking our city to enlist its powers to turn back the OTA if they continue to act as they have historically acted. Our city has permitting powers. Our city has a stormwater management plan. Our city has a robust floodplain ordinance. One of the worst things that Norman has to deal with is flooding, stormwater, and pollution of its water supply. We already live with an impaired water supply. And the OTA's record is to not care about taking care of water supplies, the environment, flood hazards, stormwater, and that applies to the Canadian River too. Our city has permitting power over the Canadian River. Our city has permitting power over its floodplains. Our city has permitting power, and our city has the power to tell the OTA no if the OTA will not be a good steward and will not work in the interest of the many instead of the few. The OTA does not work in the interest of the many instead of the few. The OTA does not work in the interest of the many as it seeks to put turnpikes all over our watershed, across our river, across our environmentally sensitive areas, across areas where the federal government has already warned them, stay back, And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be asking our mayor and our city council and our city staff, our department heads, all great people, to support us in a resolution to help us stop these turnpikes from going through the city of Norman once and for all. Thank you.
Councilman Michael Nash.
Is this good? A little bit more.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I want to hear what you have to say.
All right, so on tonight's agenda, the only item is that we're going to discuss infrastructure and as it pertains to the OTA, the turnpike project. The only infrastructure that matters when discussing the turnpike is our water supply.
Yes.
State law commits OTA to replacing any roads that they're going to destroy. So that's not an issue for us. It's simply our water. And state law dictates that no person, entity, party shall pollute our water supply. And so to that end, we need to be protecting our water supply. Now, I just got off the phone a little while ago with Mayor Dukes from Del City, and the content of the resolution is subject to change a little bit because we're probably going to turn this into a joint resolution between the City of Norman, Del City, and Midwest City. This ought to be a very interesting meeting. There are some on the council that are representing this super minority that's out there that they claim is all for the turnpike. I still haven't met these people. These mystery people live in the shadows, and if they live in the shadows and they don't want to be out in public, then they're people that we shouldn't be listening to. The only thing that matters is our future, the City of Norman, our water supply, protecting the water that's within our boundaries. And we're working not just on our own behalf, but also for Midwest City and Del City to get their water from us. There's two larger cities than us, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. Both of them have their own water supply. If we're going to commit ourselves to being dependent on Oklahoma City for our water, then we might as well just reside in our city to become the next Detroit, a failing city that becomes stagnant and population stops growing. We can't allow that to happen. We have to protect our water supply. And that's what this resolution does.
Thank you. Great. All right.
Darla LeBlanc.
Hello, my name is Darla LeBlanc, Leblanc. I was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm standing today in Norman City Hall because I'm very concerned about our future, and most especially the future of our water supply. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority wants to ram almost 59 miles of turnpike straight through our watershed, crossing about 40 tributaries and almost 600 acres of floodplain. That watershed feeds directly into Lake Thunderbird, an already impaired water source, and are also Norman's largest source of drinking supply. Unfortunately, the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has a well-documented history of environmental destruction and broken promises to cities in the past. Norman has zero reason to think that we will fare any better or be treated any differently. So I'm here to ask the City of Norman to support the resolution to protect our water, to take every action available in their power to slow down and stop the dang turnpikes.
And open it up to questions from the press. Don't everybody go first.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, is there any?
Are we good?
I think we're all good.
Good. Okay. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're done.
Wait, let's get a picture. Can we get a photo?
Yeah. I know what they're going to get in dark.
Yeah, you know,
The last line in the
I wanted to use a different four-letter word guys.
Well, it may come. Okay. Great job.
Hopefully.
Some of them are like, you got a couple, one of the presidents.
Who's taking the still? Who's taking the still photo?
Hey, nice to meet you. I'll see you around. Thank you. Hell, how's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, I think so. I think,
This is what matters, water.
they're not the same.
Water, AJ, water. It counts.
All right. Yep. Well, thanks for listening.